Welcome to the planning meeting on Wednesday the 20th of December 23. Any apologies for absence, please? Councillor Turpin.
Yeah, apologies for Councillor Anang, who I'm substituting for tonight.
Okay, excellent. And Councillor Kemp.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm substituting for Councillor Golding.
Yes, and over on our side, we could say, our side. Councillor Kempel.
I'm substituting for Councillor Howcroft-Scott.
Excellent. Right, just want to write that down. Okay. So, record of the meeting, is it agreed that the record on the supplementary agenda is correct? In fact, there's just one item on that supplementary agenda, and that's about on page 11 to minute 378. If you take note of that. Can I say I'm most impressed by the first item on the supplementary agenda. I know this is on the draft. We didn't have the new NPPF, and that was an interesting exercise. Whoever did that, can I thank them? Oh, it's you. Oh, thank you, David. Thank you. It's a whole lot of numbers. I did notice the error, but I didn't know. All right, therefore, we actually do have additional comments on items 5, 7, 8, 9 and 10, and some of those addendums or additions in conditions. I'm not aware of any urgent matters. Are there anybody else wish to raise anything? Not. Any declaratory, any declarations of interests at all? Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Chairman. It's my standard declaration that I sit on both Finsbury Extra and Cliffwoods Parish Council, but I do not take part or make any comment whatsoever in any of their planning issues.
Councillor Turpin.
Yeah, I also now sit on the Parish Council, Finsbury Extra, but also for item 12, I've actually written in support of that application, so I need to obviously
so that's a double
sit out
one.
On that one. Yeah,
that's in the ward and that's in the ward and parish as well.
Do I need to sit out of 11 as well? I've only just gone back onto the parish, so I haven't. I don't know if that affects.
So you're now Gareth Batts. All right. Okay. I don't. That'll be fine.
So 11's okay.
Just a general.
And I'd need to totally remove for item 12, do I, or just?
No, because you haven't got a personal pecuniary interest. You don't need to leave the room for that. Okay. You've just written in support of the application, so you've just got to leave the committee part and sit in the gallery. Okay. But item 11, if you haven't, as Councillor Etheridge, if you haven't taken part in the parish council discussion on the application, then you can stay for that.
Yeah.
I don't think no. Was there another hand went up? Oh, it is. Councillor Pearce.
Item 12, Chairman, the applicant is a customer for a business which I have a stakeholder in. So as it's financial, I'll be leaving the room.
Thank you. Any other member? If not, I'll move straight on to item 6, and Peter Hockley is going to introduce the Brethren's Meeting Room, Canterbury Lane, Rainham.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, members. If you can't hear me, please shout, because I'm going to be turning to view the presentation myself as well. This application site here, outlined in red, relates to the existing Brethren site. So a place of worship within the confines of Rainham. To the north of the site is existing residential development, and to the south of the site is development which is currently being constructed by Persimmon Homes. To the east is Cloverley Industrial Estate with a range of uses within that area. The proposal is to demolish the existing buildings on the site and to erect 22 residential properties. The application's in outline form before you tonight, with all matters reserved for future consideration. So it's the principle that members are looking at tonight in terms of the decision. As you'll know, it's previously developed land within the urban boundary, so is sustainable development in that terms. And as I say, because it's previously developed land, again gets additional weight in terms of the considerations for new housing in that regard. The layout there again shows an indicative layout as to how 22 units could be accommodated on the site. It's on that site plan it does show 2 vehicular access points, but as I say, at the moment all matters are reserved, so it's not even the access that we're considering under this application. So here's some photographs of the site entrance and the surroundings to give a flavour of the site itself. Again, it's predominantly the existing building and surrounding car park. And here's some photographs of the sites on the opposite side of the road in Canterbury Lane, which are the properties to the north. In terms of the density, we're looking at 22 being around 31 dwellings per hectare, which is comparable to the other surrounding development. So in terms of the principle of the development is what we're looking at solely tonight, but there's indication of the street scenes in front of members at the moment where it's clear that it can be accommodated with some good sort of trees in the street scene to give that sort of tree-lined entrance to the site, which is to be encouraged. And there's the site plan, the master plan again, which again shows the proposed landscaping as indicatively shown there. In terms of the recommendation, we're looking at recommending that members grant to resolve to grant planning permission subject to the completion of the Section 106, and the details of that Section 106 are at the top of the recommendation for members' information. And there's a significant number of conditions proposed which relates to the fact that there's a great deal of matters that need to come forward as part of the reserve matters and subsequent discharge. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any member? Is there any? Councillor Peake. You're right.
I'm there. Reason why I'm half-mast is because I'm trying to find the page again. Just more out of curiosity, the amounts that have been suggested as contribution, can you give me some idea what value they are compared to the task? Are they like really generous amounts, or are they nice gesture but not going to really cut much? And that comes from the fact that when Esther and myself did a site visit, walk around on Friday, with a member from North, we were shooting the breeze, and every time we came up with an idea, we got rough estimates. And obviously, these are not concrete. And it actually was quite a surprise how expensive everything seems to be. I had actually no idea, so I think I was quite naive. So if you give me some idea, please.
In terms of the contributions, they're sought to be secured because that's the values and the levels that are requested by the various departments. In terms of what they get spent on, because the seal regs have removed the pooling regulations now, it allows the authority to pool more than 5 contributions, whereas previously it was restricted. Pass over to Mr. Harris in terms of the comparison to other similar applications. Thank you.
Chairman, thank you. Just to build on from that, Councillor Peake, we've got a developer contributions guide which sets out the amount contribution per dwelling, and that relates to each of these. So they're all in accordance with the developer contributions guide that we've adopted. Now, as part of the local plan, we will be reviewing that, and so that might increase. But at this moment in time, those contributions are in accordance with our adopted guide. So that's all they can ask for.
Well, Councillor Jones?
Thank you very much, Chair. I welcome the 106 contributions that are being sought, particularly for youth provision. Councillor Peake has obviously asked a very astute question on that. What I was going to ask about was the affordable housing. Unless I've missed it, this is presumably something to be dealt with at the reserve matters stage.
Peter?
Chairman, it's below the threshold, so there is no requirement for affordable homes.
Councillor Etheridge?
Thank you, Chairman. Once again, on the 106 payments in the one highlighted 10, contribution to enhance open space facilities within the vicinity of the development. Can you tell me what open spaces there are within the vicinity of the development and what you're going to do to enhance those spaces? Because I would be loath to see all of that money going towards the Great Lines, to be honest.
Chairman, if I can come back on that. Thank you for that question, Councillor Etheridge. We've got the request that came through from our... sorry, I'm taking this question because Peter's still relatively new to the council, so I have that background, so my apologies, Peter. Yes, we have the request from Green Space Services. It is for open space in the vicinity, and there are a number of open spaces in the vicinity. The Great Lines Heritage Park takes 5% of the contribution, no more these days, and that is a reflection of members' concerns that too much was going to Great Lines in the past. So it will be in the vicinity. In relation to exactly what that goes to, we can come back. I can get Fiona to come back to you on that if you'd like.
Well, I'm imagining Bearengrave is the nearest green space to that site. Yeah.
Chairman, it could be Bearengrave, it could be the park up by Rainham Station, it could be Riverside Country Park, but it'll be one of those in the vicinity. Yeah.
Councillor Pearce?
Could I just get some clarification on the... it's good to see that there's a play area included, but I haven't checked all the conditions yet, but just to make sure that there is a condition there, making sure that it's not locked for residents outside of the site, if you understand what I mean. If that could be clarified, that would be great. Thank you.
Is that like to be part of the reserved application? Yeah. So it's an outline at the moment. That'll be good. So when this next application comes in for the site, that detail will be confirmed. Any other member? If not, I'm going to go to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendation to approve the application subject to 106 agreement as written out on page 31 and conditions 1 to 27 as in the main report. Thank you.
So it's...
Seconded. Sorry. Chair, it's a bit slow at Christmas time. Seconded.
Okay. So this is for approval. Is that recommendation agreed? Show of hands, please. Those four.
That's 15, Chair.
Okay. Excellent. That's everybody. So the application for Brevens Meeting Hall in Canterbury Lane, Rainham, has been approved. So as I mentioned, we'll take 7 and 8 together, but as and when the leader of the council turns up, as he's the ward member and he's at an event at the moment. So we'll go to item 9. And please note that on the supplementary agenda, there's additional conditions 12 and 13. And again, it's Peter.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this site is land to the rear of 2 properties that front Maidstone Road. So if you can just see the arrow there, there's Maidstone Road. The garages or outbuildings in question are to the rear, and the proposal is to demolish those 2 outbuildings and erect a pair of semi-detached properties in their place. This road here is Tanker Hill and goes off down and joins the road further down, which then comes back onto Deanwood Drive and onto Maidstone Road. So this is an aerial photograph of the site, and you can see that the character of the area is properties here which front onto Tanker Hill, and then at the end there's the 2 outbuildings which are in question with the application site, again, that will split the rear guard in half to allow the front portion for the properties on Maidstone Road and the rear for the new. Each property, as you can see on the block plan on the slide, would have 2 car parking spaces for parking. So I think that's one of the issues that was raised by objectors. And if I go back to this, it's you can see it's a cul-de-sac and with a turning head at the end of the cul-de-sac, just a couple of properties along from the application site. Again, here's some photographs of the surrounding area. The left one is the existing situation, which has some hard standing and outbuildings on the property, with the middle one showing the adjacent properties that have been constructed and front onto Tanker Hill. These are the elevations of the proposed dwellings. So again, you can see that they're a pair of semi-detached with the front doors that face onto the parking area. They're relatively modest dwellings in terms of the sort of scale and the accommodation within them, and will not look out of place in the character of the area. The recommendation is that planning permission be granted in accordance with the papers and the amendments that Councillor Hubbard referred to on the supplementary papers. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Peter. Any member? Councillor Etheridge.
Sorry, Chair, I'm darting back and forth between bits and pieces on this machine, which I find absolutely horrendous. Please give us an apple. In terms of conditions, there are 2 conditions mentioned in the original papers, one regarding removal of permitted development rights, and I can't remember what the other one was now because I can't get back into it. But can we ensure that those recommendations, those conditions are actually put in place, please?
Peter?
Yes, thank you. Yes, those conditions are on. Thank you.
Okay, any other member? If not, I'm going to move to the Vice Chair. And Vice Chair, if you note, there are 2 additional conditions, 12 and 13.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendation to approve the application subject to conditions 1 to 11 in the main papers and the additional conditions 12 and 13 in the supplementary agenda. Thank you.
Happy to second all that, Chair.
So we're down, the proposal is for approval. Those in favour of the recommendation?
That's 15, Chair.
Those against? I think that was everybody, wasn't it? Sorry. We're doing well. So, so the application for land rear of 339A and 341 Maidstone Road has been approved. So move on to 10. And just to again on the supplementary agenda, there's amendment to conditions 19 and 21, and Mr. Harris is going to speak to this.
Chairman, thank you very much. So, members, this is an application on the site that you see just here, next to the Royal Mail depot here, and opposite Rochester Airport Industrial Estate on the opposite side of the road, and the King's Rochester Sports Centre just here. You will see we've got the motorway, which runs along the bottom of the site through here, and then the high-speed rail link just through there. Now, the site is in an area of local landscape importance. It's in the strategic gap, and it's opposite an area of outstanding natural beauty. All of these designated in the adopted local plan. And it is a site where we've sought to resist development in the past. Now, this application is set out in page 116 of your report. It's an application for the construction of a part single, part 2-storey depot workshop building with ancillary offices, but also for an access to the site, for car parking, but also HGV parking as well, and washing facilities. It's for the commercial headquarters and lorry park for Neil Yates Recovery, and they provide 24-hour commercial rescue and recovery services across the UK and Europe. Page 116 sets out the height of the building that you'll be considering, and also the parking as well. The amount of staff parking, 55 of them, and 28 bays for HGVs, and 27 bays for the smaller HGVs. Now, these are the views of the site, and then looking back across towards the area of outstanding natural beauty. That's the access to the site, and you can look across the road there towards the existing industrial estate. I don't know how my officer got into there, but he did. That's the photo from the site there. And he must have been running from that car because that's quite a blurred photo. But you can see the access to the site here. This is a photo, an aerial photograph, which I think is very pertinent to the consideration of this site. Because as I said, in the local plan, this whole area is an area of outstanding natural beauty and a strategic gap. And across here, we've got the area of outstanding natural beauty. So this is an area of local landscape importance, and that's the area of outstanding natural beauty over here. Now, we have protected this site, this area from development in the past. However, our borough boundary comes through about here, and at some point in time, in the relatively recent past, Tunbridge and Morning Council have granted planning permission for this industrial development through here, which includes Screwfix and various other industrial uses in there. That then means that this is a cut-off area from the area of local landscape importance, and basically changes how we consider the application. Since then, as a result of that, members may be aware that in this area here, this committee approved an application for the council depot in there, and that's been constructed. And then in here, we granted approval for Wren's Kitchens in there, and that has been implemented as well. We were put through the hoops, rightly so, by the AONB unit and the Natural England in relation to these two sites, because of the sensitivity of this site and that setting of the AONB across the far side of the motorway and high-speed rail line. As a result of that, and the sloping of the land, the need to get some appropriate landscaping in the site to soften those views of the buildings was critical. I did ask the question of Natural England as to why that hadn't happened with this development, and was told that was because Tunbridge and Morling didn't consult them on the application. We did consult them on this, and that's why we've been put through the hoops, but rightly so. As a result of those decisions, and that decision, we're now looking, as you can see from the recommendation, far more sympathetically with this proposal in here. So new access into the site, providing car parking down here. This is the building, and then this is the HGV parking through here. Looking to retain and enhance the landscaping fronting the Maidstone Road, but also have a ghost turning lane just through here, similar to what we did with our own site, literally next door. But then importantly, what we need to do, as we've done with our own site next door, is to augment, enhance, and do additional planting along this area here, as well as some safety barriers, following the advice of national highways, because you've got the motorway down the bottom of the slope. And that's that ghost island I was talking about. Some proposed plans show the office in here, and then the washing recovery area workshop in there, and then how the offices will be laid out. Some elevations, and I'll hopefully show some CGIs later, show how it will fit it. You know, that's quite standard, this bit in here. This is where it fronts onto Maidstone Road, more attractive, but we will be conditioning materials to be submitted to us for our further consideration. In terms of landscaping, the team, you'll see from when the date of the application, we've been working very closely with them to get the landscaping right in terms of what will be appropriate planting, what will be appropriate soil even in these areas, to have something which will grow, which will soften the development in the medium long term, similar to what the hoops we've done ourselves and the immediately adjacent site. And that shows how the site then slopes down to the rear towards the motorway down here. And some proposed visuals just showing how it will be, how it will sit on the site, be attractive in terms of its appearance from Maidstone Road, but the landscaping will help to break up the car parking, the HGVs, as well as soften and screen the development. So we think it's an appropriate employment use now, subject to the conditions that we've set out. We have liaised very carefully with National Highways for two reasons. One, in terms of the motorway down the bottom, to make sure that the necessary safety measures are put in place and there's conditions reflecting that, but also in terms of the capacity of junction 3 of the M2, and we all know how busy that junction is. And National Highways are happy with the application as well. And on that basis, Chairman, we're recommending approval, subject to the conditions as set out and as amended on the supplementary agenda advice. Thank you.
So when we had the application for our own site next door, we had some lovely graphics showing the trees growing. It's a shame we won't be able to show that this time round, because what it did, it showed the fact over a period of time the warehousing would disappear. So, any member? Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Chairman. On page 116, it says the administration for the area will be a base for 24-hour road assistance, HGV repair, fleet maintenance and lorry park. I'm assuming that's 365 days a year. So are we ensuring that this place doesn't come overloaded with vehicles queuing to come in there whilst others are being repaired and sent back on the road?
Chairman, that's a really good question, as always, from Councillor Etheridge. We're satisfied, along in discussion with our Highways Authority, with National Highways, but also with the applicants, that you can see the lorry parking that is in here, as well as the bays. That will be sufficient to deal with the demands of the site. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm happy to hear about the landscaping element to this, because what we don't want to see is a repeat of what we've had to some degree at Kingsnorth, where we've had these big industrial units built, and then once they are built, they do stick out quite big on the landscape. So if we can screen it effectively and effectively hide it, that's good. And so yeah, because of the conditions, because of the explanation, I'm happy with this. Thank you.
Yeah, it was, as I mentioned earlier on, the video that was provided on the site, which is next door to ours, was very helpful in allowing members of that committee to imagine what was going to be happening, because it was actually shown to us. Councillor Turpin.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I just wanted to ask a question relating to sort of highways and safety, because I think that part of the Maidstone Road, it does get sort of quite narrow, and they're going to be quite large sort of vehicles coming and going. So I know sort of Royal Mail it's going to be next door, isn't it? Is it Royal Mail or a bit? Yeah, and obviously they've got large vehicles coming in now, but they're a little bit, you know, that further up where it's a little bit wider. So has that been looked at to sort of ensure that they're not going to be coming out and having to sort of go across the central reservation to get out?
I'm happy to answer that, but I don't know whether the Highways Officer wants to answer that one.
Haven't used this before. Yes, the road is sufficiently wide there to accommodate the HGVs that are required on the site, and the proposed access as well is sufficiently wide, and tracking has been provided to demonstrate that vehicles can get in and out. Trust that's okay.
That was a shock, wasn't it, George? You've been sitting here for quite a few meetings and nobody's asked you a question yet. Right. Any other member? If not, okay. I'm going to go to the Vice Chair, and as I mentioned earlier on, there are amended conditions 19 and 21.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendation to approve the application subject to conditions 1 to 28 as laid out in the main papers, and the amendment of conditions 19 and 21 in the supplementary agenda. Thank you.
So,
happy to second, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, so it's been moved that we approve. Those in favour of the recommendation?
Sorry, Councillor Etheridge, was your... Well, 15. That's 15, Chair.
Okay. Excellent. So, the land adjacent to Royal Mail Depot, Bridgewood site, Maidstone Road, Rochester, has been approved. So, move to item 11. That's Calling Road in Strood. And Jackie, it's good to speak to her.
Sorry. Thank you, Chair. So this is 45 to 47 Cooling Road in Strood. The application is for the construction of a single-storey extension and the conversion of the property into 2 dwelling houses. This shows the location of the site within the urban area of Finsbury. And this aerial view shows the site outlined in red. The dwelling is sited on Cooling Road near the junction of Iden Road and is surrounded by residential dwellings, as you can see. There is parking on street and within the surrounding streets. This shows the front of the existing building. There are no proposed changes to the front elevation. It should be noted, though, that the dwelling was originally 2 semi-detached dwellings and was previously converted into 1 dwelling. So this application brings it back into 2 dwellings. You can see that the property also has 2 existing front doors, so they will be reused in this scheme. And the property is currently vacant. This slide shows the rear of the existing building, and you can see the existing conservatory there, which will be demolished, and a single-storey rear extension will be put in its place. The existing and proposed block plan, you can see the single-storey rear extension on the existing block plan here, and what will be put in place here, which will open up this access here. You can also see the division of the gardens to provide each dwelling with a garden, and the cycle storage at the back. This shows the proposed elevation. As I said, the front elevation won't change, but you can see the proposed conservatory here. And on the side elevations, you can see the depth of the proposed single-storey rear extension. This shows the proposed floor layout for the dwellings. Each dwelling has a kitchen and a living dining area at the ground floor. Property 1 has a bedroom, a study room and a bathroom on the first floor, and property 2 has 2 bedrooms and a bathroom at the first floor. All the rooms meet the national space standards, and the bird mitigation fee has been paid for this application, and each property would be provided with adequate amenity space. The dwelling has currently got no parking now, and there is no parking proposed. However, there is on-street parking, which is considered acceptable in this instance. This is due to the number of bedrooms not increasing. Indeed, they will decrease by 1. And also, the property is in a relatively sustainable location with a bus stop almost immediately outside the property, a primary school, and a new secondary school under construction within close proximity and within a relatively short distance from a local centre. Therefore, the application is recommended for approval as set out in the report.
Thank you. It's an unusual application. As you go down Cooling Road, it looks like 2 properties. It's got 2 front doors, but it's not. It's one single property. The property next door, it looks like 3, but it's 1. Any member? Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just reading one of the objections. It says it's an objection, but it looks more like a comment from one of the neighbours about ensuring that the boundaries are confirmed, something about the boundaries. So I'm just asking if officers are helping in that regard, or will that be a land registry issue that they would need to take them up with?
That is the property I told you about. It looks like 3, but it's actually 1. Mr. Harris?
Chairman, no, that'll be a civil matter.
Councillor Turpin?
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, it seems odd to put my microphone on when I'm sitting right next to you. I just wanted to, you mentioned about the sort of the rooms sizes all fitting national standards, but I noticed sort of the 1 bedroom, it's a study which could be used maybe as a bedroom. Does that meet standards for if it was to be used as a bedroom?
No, that doesn't. That's why it is a study. Yeah, that's why it's shown as a study.
And is that in sort of, do we put that in conditions with how it can be used? Because I know you're sort of saying about the number of bedrooms is actually decreased by 1 by doing this, and that sort of has an impact on parking. If that wasn't the case, would that have impacted parking requirements?
I don't think it would have changed parking requirements, but we do have to take the developer at their word that it will be used as a study.
Councillor Gilbourne, I do apologise. I failed to take you first.
Thank you. Just with the proposed layout that you've got on the screen, obviously it's going back into two properties and there's access down the left-hand side, which is fine for that property next to it. But on the other property, is there access at all down the side or from the back?
No, there isn't.
No. Okay, right. Just a point of clarification. Thank you.
Okay. Any other member? If not, I'm going to go to the Vice Chair to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendation to approve the application subject to conditions 1 to 5 as laid out in the main papers. Thank you.
Seconded.
So the recommendation is for approval. Those in favour of the recommendation?
That's 15, Chair.
So the application for 4547 Cooling Road, Strood, I really think it's Finsbury really, is approved. Right, move on to item 12. That is the Boot Fair, Upner Road, Upner, Rochester. And Mr. Harris is going to speak to it.
Chairman, thank you very much. This is the application site just here in the Hogmarsh Valley, a very important valley here in terms of providing a physical and visual separation from the urban area of Wainscott, Finsbury, to Upners and also up to Chatham and Hoo. This field has been used for a boot fair for quite a number of years now. Very successful boot fair, and you'll know, members, from the planning report how that there has been an increase from what is allowed under permitted development rights as a result of changes in legislation over COVID to allow these uses to increase slightly. Now they're looking to formalise an additional 7 boot fairs in the year to take it from the permitted 14 up to 21 in total in one calendar year. The fact that the boot fair has been operating for quite a few years now, and indeed operated on an extended basis over recent years, has enabled us to carefully consider the impact of this and whether it's acceptable or not. So this is the site here. So you've got, they look to come in here. This is how it currently operates. So you come in here and you go out here. And that's because of this bend that exists around here and the entrance and exit to the tennis courts there. The stalls are located in this area here, along with these toilets. And then you've got this pedestrian bridge across to Wainscott. So some people can arrive on foot and through there. In terms of the access, those arriving to it predominantly coming down Berwick Way and then along Upner Road there, and then we'll queue to get into the site there. And that demonstrates how successful it is. A number of times, I'm not a boot fair person, members, but the number of times I've gone past and there is a long queue here going back towards Berwick Way. But they do move quite quickly onto the site and then out. Less people come from this direction. So that shows the entrance to the site, and you can see the tennis courts just in here. And this is where the car park is, and the boot fairs are further back. And then the exit from the site here. Now you will notice these concrete bollards. At some point in times, they've got concrete bollards there. Other times they will put a car on the opposite side here. That is to stop unauthorised access into the site. So they move them before the boot fair takes place. You can see here the exit from the site and the movement towards that bend at Frog Island. And then this is looking from the bridge across to where, that's Upner Road, just through here. So that's the parking area, and this is where the stalls are, just in there. And this sort of sets the context. And I think this is important because it highlights the importance of this area for its openness, that Hogmarsh Valley, and that separation towards to Castle Street and Upner from the urban area here across Welfare Way and Berwick Way through there. So members, we're content with this application. It's been carefully considered. We're content with it subject to the conditions as set out. It's limiting it to 21 boot fairs in the year. It's giving it a temporary permission till September 2026 so that we can assess the impact of those additional seven days in a year. Also looking to restrict it to May to September as well. And then restricting it so that it should not commence before 5 a.m. on any day, and no buyers or sellers shall be allowed access to the site before this time, nor shall any lighting be used other than handheld torches. And that's to protect not only the rural character of the area, but also the amenities of people who live reasonably close by, particularly in Castle Street, just there. And then condition 4 is particularly appropriate. It's they should operate in accordance with the submitted details, particularly in relation to the use of marshals to control traffic and parking, and also post-event cleaning of the site on each day that there's a boot fair, and then the removal of the temporary toilets at the end of each season. So you can see them removed on this plan, but they are stored through that May to September period, just in the end here. And subject to that temporary consent and the other conditions laid out, we're recommending approval, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you for that report and the conditions associated with it. I just want to ensure that they do actually have marshals on there to control not just the traffic, but also the people coming in to do their selling at 3 o'clock in the morning, which is when they're currently sitting there parking, waiting to come on site. So I should be monitoring that very closely to ensure those marshals are there, sending those people away at 3 o'clock in the morning. In addition to that, Chairman, I would also like to request that the entrance is made larger, so we don't have a queue going down the road waiting to get in. So 2 vehicles at a time can actually pass through those gates rather than one struggling to get through. So that's, and in addition to that, I know it's not a planning condition, but we do have yellow lines situated in there. There are parking restrictions there already, and we need to ensure that those parking restrictions are enforced. Thank you.
Mr. Harris.
Chairman, that's a very informed comments from Councillor Etheridge. He knows the site very well. I think the best thing for us to do is then, in terms of the 3 a.m. starts, and I do understand the issues that creates, and it must cause some issues for the people here, particularly if the wind is in a certain direction in terms of that noise. So I understand that concern totally. I think we'll cover that by an informative and a letter to the applicants as well. In relation to widening the access, we can make those suggestions again in a covering letter to the applicants, and consider that over the next few years as well. But I think covering it in a letter and an informative and then monitoring that. But I think that's a positive suggestion from Councillor Etheridge. Thank you.
Do you wish to come back, Mr. Councillor Etheridge?
No, I'd be interested to see who's actually going to do that monitoring over the next 2 years, so we get a formative report back, not from the applicant, but from our own officers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chairman, I think I've just set myself up for a site visit at 3 a.m. in the morning.
On your bike? On my bike, yeah. Okay. Councillor Hamadashi.
No, thank you for that. I just want to make an observation and a statement to some effect. This must be encouraged. The cost of living is affecting so many people in the area, and we need to balance up attracting people to meet, congregate, sell their wares, encourage recycling, upcycling. These boot fairs encourage that, and also for social cohesion and networking. And we need to balance that up against traffic, litter, and so forth. But overwhelmingly it's just something positive. We cannot get away from the fact that people are struggling, and this is an opportunity for people to take greater independence and sell some goods and make some money. But on that note, I just wanted to ask a question. In terms of litter, a lot of us here, we get involved in litter pickups all the time. Is there any plans to put any permanent litter bins on those sites? Thank you.
Chairman, again, a cracking question from Councillor Hammadishi. My observation, knowing this site very, very well, and walking that area very often, the applicants here, Greenfield, do operate a very good litter operation on the day of the boot fair, and the site is very clean when they leave it. But I think that's satisfactorily covered by condition 4 about that cleaning and the litter on the site. But good question, thank you.
No, thank you.
Did I see another hand go up? Councillor Peake, yeah.
I wanted to talk about rubbish as well, but I've kind of been just beaten to the punch. Because on section 4, under marshals, it does say that there's a daily clean-up. I'm very keen about litter. These are bane of our lives, and including the countryside. So we've been told they do a good job. But what actual, is there like official record kept by us that checks that a really thorough job has been done, so that we have a record in the history that we can refer back to, just in case?
No, Chairman, we don't keep a record of that, but I would expect that if there were to be a litter problem there, it would be very quickly brought to the attention of the ward councillors and my officers, and we would be able to deal with it in pursuant to condition 4. But I have to say, Mr. Greenfield operates in terms of the rubbish collection, litter collection, a very, very well operated site.
Any other member? Oh, Councillor Field.
Thank you, Chair. Just wanted to check on this condition around lighting. Looking at sunrise and sunsets, in September, sunrise at the very end of September is not until 7 a.m. So potentially there's 2 hours of operation in darkness. Now, obviously we've got moving vehicles going around. There is obviously health and safety risk of that. But obviously there's conditions around lighting. I just invite again a comment just about how that situation is going to work, and that we don't get undue light pollution during those hours when the first 2 hours of operation and setup will be in darkness for the end of September.
Mr. Harris.
Chairman, they do already operate between May and September, but only 14 days, so they do already operate there. And I understand exactly the question, Councillor Field. It does operate safely and successfully without any lights other than car lights and handheld lights.
Any other member? One of those things, I said it before, that I haven't seen Star Wars. I've never been to a boot fair. I need to go and have a look, especially as it's just outside my ward. So I'm going to go to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendation for temporary approval of the application with conditions 1 to 4 as laid out in the main papers. Thank you.
So the approval has been moved.
Second your visit to a boot fair, Chair.
Those in favour of the recommendation?
That's 13, Chair.
Excellent. So the recommendation for the boot fair Upnor Road, Upnor, has been approved, and we need to have Councillor Pearce back in the room. Councillor Maple has arrived just in time. So we're going to go back to items 7 and 8. As I said, we're going to take them together. There'll be separate votes. And okay. And Nick Roberts is going to be speaking to the item.
Thank you, Chairman, and good evening, members. So, before I start, this is an application that some members all may recognise. There was a members' presentation back in July, on the 10th of July, and it's a proposal being brought forward by the Institute of Cultural and Creative Industries at the University of Kent. And the application is for the park conversion, or park demolition, sorry, and conversion of the police section house into exhibition space, a cafe, meeting space, post-production studios, and co-working space. And it also includes the construction of a digital production studio on land to the rear of the police section house. What it will be a hub for immersive and state-of-the-art technologies, and what it will provide is learning, training, teaching, volunteering opportunities, as well as opportunities for the wider population of Medway. And it really does fit into our cultural strategy and our cultural regeneration and placemaking programme. So in terms of the site itself, it's outlined in red. To the north, you've got the Busy Bee Nursery, and further north, the Dockside shopping outlet. To the east, you've got the barracks. You'll see on the plan that we're literally a stone's throw away to the northeast. To the south, you've got the timber sawmill, Brunel timber sawmill, and then to the west, you've got the Mast Ponds and the parking for the historic Dockyard. What I wanted to do very briefly before I move on was just touch very quickly on the planning context. So in terms of our local plan policies, they very much support the expansion of existing campuses at the historic Dockyard. It's in the urban area as well, so it's very much supported by our strategic policies as well, which prioritise development within the urban fabric. In addition, the MPPF supports creative and high technology industries, and the site also forms part of a wider site that has been identified for regeneration within the Chatham Interface Land Development Brief, which is a supplementary planning document. And what this SPD does is provides further guidance in respect to wider regeneration opportunities within the Dockyard, and it emphasises the importance of high quality design approaches. And the applicant has engaged with the landowners and developers that are bringing forward those wider regeneration opportunities within the Dockyard or the Chatham Interface Land, so countryside. So these two schemes can align, and I actually think that this proposal could act as a catalyst for encouraging more diverse and innovative uses as part of the site's wider regeneration. So just moving back to the presentation in terms of the photos. So what we have, a photo looking along the northern boundary. So you'd have essentially the Busy Bees Day Nursery would be to the east, the police section house to the west. We've got a view along the boundary with Dock Road. So this wall here is the Dock Road wall to the Dockyard, and then obviously you can see to the left of that the police section house. More distant views from the southern boundary looking across back towards the police section house. And then this here would be the principal elevation. So this is the view where you would get from within the Dockyard itself. Again, some more photos. This is a view back towards the police section house. Again, various photos as well from within the Dockyard looking across to the north. And I've also included a couple of images from within the police section house. Now, this is a building that's been derelict for the past 60 years. So you can see in terms of the condition of it internally, and I think it's poignant to show you those photos so you can see obviously this is an opportunity to bring this building back into life and regenerate this site as part of wider development proposals. And again, these are just longer distance views. So this is the Busy Bee nursery. So this is Dock Road here. Sorry, no, it's not. This is the back of Busy Bee's nursery. So you're looking towards the police section house. I think it's Pembroke Rise, essentially. And then this is the view from the Dock Road, looking back towards the police section house. And then these are various views, again, from within the dockyard itself. So from the Mast Pond, looking across. And here you can see the prominence of the police section house, and it is principally significant as a rare example of policing within the dockyard. And again, just to provide some additional context, we've got an aerial view here. The outline of the police section house has been imposed within that. So again, to the north and further to the north, you've got the dockside outlet, the Mast Pond, the visitor centre car park to the historic dockyard, the timber sawmill, and again, obviously the barracks, and we're just here tonight. And I also, although not very clear on this slide, you can see the boundary to the conservation area, which essentially cuts through diagonally through the site. So this is a proposed site plan. So you've got the police section house here, and then the digital production studio to the rear, and then access off of Brunel Way for servicing vehicles, and there's one disabled parking space as well that would come in from Brunel Way and along Pembroke Rise. And in terms of existing elevations, so these are the existing elevations to the police section house. So there are flank elevations that were added at a later date, so they don't form part of the original fabric of the building, but as part of these proposals, the single-storey flank elevation will be removed to provide service access. And in terms of the existing floor plans, as you would have seen from the photos, it's derelict, but back when it was occupied for policing, you would have had ancillary services within the ground floor of the building, and then dormitories, including accommodation for superintendent as well. And then again, this is just existing floor plans from the roof with the cupola and the sections as well. So moving on to the proposed elevations, before I move on, I just wanted to mention that the former police section house is a Grade 2 listed building and a scheduled monument. So works that affect the fabric of the police section house itself, so both externally and internally, will be addressed as part of a scheduled monument application. That will be an application that's made to, or has already been made to Historic England, and on that point, Historic England, Alice Brockway, who's dealing with the application, has made a recommendation for approval, and that's now been passed to the Secretary of State for Digital Culture, Media and Sport. So in terms of obviously how the two proposals align at the moment, we know that Historic England have also made a recommendation for approval for the scheduled monument consent as well. So yes, just returning back to the elevations, so this would be the principal elevation. As you can see, the existing extension or flank extension has been removed to allow the servicing for access vehicles, and there'll be various changes to the fenestrations to the rear, obviously to suit the purpose of the building. And moving on, so this is a section from either side where you can see, so this is what would be the new digital production studio. Its scale is very much derived from its function and the need for it to contain the specialist equipment and facilities that form part of this proposed use. But in considering obviously its scale, we feel the design and layout within the site has been carefully considered to minimise its impact. Firstly, the footprint has been positioned to be set back from the section house to retain space between the section house and the new building, obviously for new landscaping. The height of the studio has also been manipulated to align with the parapet level of the section house, so not to detract from its intended prominence. And it's also located to the rear to minimise any conflict with its principal elevation. And in terms of the intended prominence of the police section house, it would have been to look over the dockyard, so that won't affect its previous use. And also in terms of the materials, which I will move on to shortly, it's brick to complement the police section house. There's corten steel cladding, metal and timber detailing, which we feel reflects industrial character but adds a modern interpretation to that. Again, these are more elevations of the digital production studio, so you can see obviously within the rear, to the rear of that, the police section house. And this would be, the bottom elevation would be if you were standing between the section house and the new digital production studio looking towards Dock Road. And again, just some sections, street scene elevations across, and some more. These are the proposed floor plans, so not very clear, but there would be exhibition space and a foyer on the ground floor with a cafe and meeting space. You've got the main digital production studio, which would be essentially on a plinth. So at ground floor level, you've got various studios and ancillary functions to the digital production studio. And then moving up, you've got additional co-working space, office space, classroom space, moving up to the upper levels. And then you can see as the digital production studio moves up, it comes in from the plinth. And again, obviously moving up, it shows the same relationship. And then up into the roof space. And again, these are just sections to demonstrate the relationship between the police section house and the new digital production studio. Then just to provide some contextual elevations, here you can see, obviously, the materiality. I know it's not that clear from the slides, but because of the quality of the slides. But yes, you've got the corten steel, the materiality of the envelope of the new digital production studio with a link across to the police section house. And again, some more illustrative elevations just showing the relationship between the two. And then moving on to the illustrative landscape master plan. So that to the front of the police section house, there will be a landscaped area with native species. Then between the police section house and the new production studio, there'll be a courtyard area. And then with proposals for a green roof around the plinth of the digital production studio. And these are just some CGIs. So this one is from Dock Road. This would be from within the site. See, within the digital production studio itself. In terms of the principal elevation, what you can see obviously is that when looking from the front, you won't actually see the digital production studio. There will be oblique views from either side, but they will not detract from the prominence of the police section house itself. And then it's a shame you can't really see this, but this is just, I've included this within the slide so you can see where they've derived the materiality from, so taking other sources from in the dockyard and adding a modern and contemporary twist to that. So I guess to conclude on the full application, yes, the proposal, it would cause harm to the significance of the section house, but the harm would be at the lower end of the scale and less than substantial in terms of the MPPF, and that's approach that's Historic England also support. we feel the scale and mass of the proposed extension represents the least harmful way to deliver the digital production studio, which is clearly a fundamental component of the proposed creative use in the section house. The demolition of the single-storey extension to create adequate servicing for the proposal is also unavoidable, and where replacement doorways are proposed, they are required to make the building function in its use. And clearly the proposed development would also bring a long-term vacant building back into use that would deliver works which can serve the section house and that could contribute towards sustainable communities and economic vibrancy. In addition, we feel the design of the digital production studio itself has evolved into a subtle but sophisticated modern take on metal and timber structures, drawing on local character, but with a modern take on architecture. So in terms of the full application, for that reason, you would have seen on the supplementary that in terms of the approach to biodiversity net gain, that would be in compliance with the NPPF. So the proposal would require the removal of 34 individual trees to the rear of the site, which are predominantly self-seeding sycamores, and following consultation with green spaces and KCC biodiversity, we're seeking an environmental mitigation contribution of £40,000, and what that will do is that cost has been generated on the basis of supplying the equivalent number of replacement trees to compensate those that will be lost on Medway Council-owned land, with subsequent ongoing management costs and capital works to create and enhance that habitat. In addition to that, there are on site there will be ecological enhancements, including green roof, log piles and bee bricks, all of which will be, obviously further details of which will be secured by condition. So we put forward a resolution to approve, subject to the completing a UU to collect the £40,000 required for the environmental mitigation and with the conditions as set out. And if I move swiftly on to the listed building application. So as previously mentioned, as Historic England will be dealing with, or are dealing with the scheduled monument consent, they don't form part of the listed building application consent. So the listed building application consent purely relates to works to remove vegetation and restore the brick pillar within the rear of the police section house. So again, photos, I won't go over this, but here you can see that the brick piers originally, this is an old photo, but there would have been an overhead rail system here that was used in connection with the timber sawmill, and it would have been used for cranes carrying the timber to the stacking yard. So obviously over time, a lot of these brick piers have been lost, and actually I think this is the only surviving remnants of that overhead crane system. And these are just historic photos. So these are photos obviously of the brick pier itself now, so you can see it's heavily vegetated, and as part of the proposals they'll be removing the vegetation, obviously assessing the quality of the brick pier, and then obviously putting in a remediation strategy to repoint and restore that. And this is just a historical photo, which again isn't that clear, but you can see obviously the former use as the timber stacking in connection obviously with the shipbuilding. Again, this is an aerial image of the application site. Again, you've seen this, so I won't divulge on that. Again, a proposed site plan, and this is, you can't actually see it, but the brick pier here. Sorry, I can't see, the camera's in the way, but the brick pier in question is located just here. And again, you can see it, or you can't, but it's just there. And again, this is just an elevation to show what it could look like in the context of obviously the development proposals. And again, here we are. You can see it just here, and this is a CGI of how it could potentially look once it's been restored and the vegetation removed. So again, this application has been recommended for approval subject to the conditions as set out, and also in terms of supplementary agenda amendment to the condition requiring a written scheme of investigation in respect to archaeology. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Watts. Okay, Councillor Maple has arrived and is wishing to speak as a ward member. Is it agreed that he speaks? Before you start, need to get my timer going. You have 5 minutes, and there'll be. I'll give you a 1 minute warning. Okay.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hubbard, and thank you, colleagues. To finish off the previous item, I have been to a boot fair, but I've never been to see Star Wars, so I felt I needed to give that contribution as well. And thanks for your flexibility in the agenda. I've been attending child-friendly Medway, asking very challenging questions of me and the Chief Executive, so I'm grateful for your flexibility. I'm proud this is the first planning application I'm speaking on as a councillor for Chatham Central and Brompton. I'm very supportive of this, and I wanted to highlight 2 or 3 things, particularly from predominantly the main application. Firstly, always importantly from my perspective, there are no responses from residents in the ward saying they don't wish this to proceed. That's something which as ward councillors will all take very seriously. Secondly, the historic Dockyard, which of course is where the physical building is, are broadly supportive. They've got some questions around kind of finite detail, and I know that will be worked through. Again, in both those cases, both residents or the landlord effectively, they could have not been happy. And I think the fact that they are shows me that this has got the confidence of those who are most likely to be directly affected by it. This is a building, predominantly the old building, which has been not used for more than the time I've been alive. So bringing it back into use is a really positive thing to do. And certainly recognises the work that I think in particular 2 things. Us as a community here in Medway, I think that brings real added value to the creative industries that we value, but importantly working closely actually with the Dockyard. I don't want to be in a situation where people are coming to my ward to film something and then having to go somewhere else because they can't do post-production. And this will give them the opportunity to do exactly that. I wanted to absolutely highlight condition 3. I think that's important. That's around the plan. And I'd ask officers in those discussions to look specifically at the operation of Busy Bees. I should declare a retrospective interest as Ned went to Busy Bees. It's an excellent nursery. And of course, they've got peak times where actually if there's a lorry coming in with stuff and 20 parents turning up, that's an issue which we can easily avoid. So making sure that's specifically referenced in the application. I accept entirely that the new building will have subjective views. Some people won't like it. That's absolutely fine. I think it's a beautiful building. I think that the vision that sits alongside the historic, immediately with the police station, but actually more generally, I think it's a welcomed addition. But I accept there will be some colleagues and actually some residents, some visitors to Medway who will go, what on earth is that? I think they'll be in the minority, but I can't say everyone would love it. It would be naive of me to say otherwise. I think this is a really good use of a space which hasn't been used, let's say, for more than 50 years. So I really welcome this application. I welcome the partnership working between the council and the university and the Dockyard, genuine one Medway approach to this. So I hope colleagues will support both applications. I think it's the right thing to do for my community, but actually the right thing to do for Medway as well. As I've got just over a minute left, planning has been talked a lot in the last 48 hours. And while I've got the opportunity to speak here tonight, I just want to make a very clear statement directly to you as chair of this committee, to Mr. Harris, to you as chief planning officers. I'd ask, and I'm sure this is supported on a cross-party basis, I have absolute confidence in the planning team of Medway. Councillors who come to this committee every few weeks will know the work that goes in, day out, to deliver for the people of Medway. For someone who's got no idea about Medway to make comments about our planning team is disgraceful. So I would ask through you, Chair, and through you, Mr Harris, to formally thank the hard-working planning team of Medway, who should not listen to people who have no idea about Medway. I've been lucky enough to be a councillor along with everybody else in this room. I've heard developers, residents, other councils saying, you've got a brilliant planning team. I want Michael Gove to come and see that in action. So I appreciate the time and opportunity tonight. I'd encourage colleagues to vote for both applications. Thank you.
Thank you for those words. And yes, if Mr Harris, you can pass it on to the rest of the team, because it was quite stunning what happened yesterday. And the idea that we're on the naughty step and all criteria will show we're not on the naughty step, and just because we don't have a local plan in place, and there are many other authorities who are not going through the local plan process and put it on hold because the local plan process is changing. So there'll be far more authorities in a far worse position in the sense of not having a local plan coming forward compared to this authority. Any member? Councillor Hamadeshi?
Thank you for those statements. First and foremost, as a fan of any historical police building, it's an opportunity for us to recognise the opportunity to regenerate, and I say that literally, to regenerate a building that's sat there idle for 50 years and encourage opportunities for young people to aspire to get into the arts, the digital spaces. Because when we're looking for skills that are relevant, we've got something on our doorstep, a historical dockyard. We've got film crews coming here already. And all what they require is additional inputs so we can support that industry and create industry of our own in this area. So I'll be absolutely supporting that. Thank you.
I just see another member put the hand up. Yeah, Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Chairman. I would just like to draw everyone's attention to the beginning of page 83, where it reads as part of a previous paragraph, loss of medium distinctivist habitats must be offset with habitat creation of the same broad habitat type, e.g. grassland, woodland, etc., or a habitat of higher distinctiveness. I would like to see part of that condition removed, where it says loss of medium distinctive habitats must be offset with a habitat of higher distinctiveness. Thank you.
Mr Roberts? Or Mr Harris?
So, in terms of trading rules, what they require is like for like or better. So, in achieving a like for like habitat, they would be complying with the requirements of the biodiversity net gain strategy that will be enacted as part of the Environment Act, but that's not actually enforced within the Planning Act as yet, and we're expecting that to come in January. But this would be like for like, actually potentially better, because they're self-seeding sycamores, and what we would be looking to secure are mixed species that over time would actually have a higher habitat value.
Mr Harris, did you want to just...
No, the next point that he made at the end there, in terms of this will actually, Councillor Etheridge, this will be better. We're not going to be replacing self-sown sycamores with self-sown sycamores. There'll be a mixed tree species, so it'll be an enhanced, as Nick said. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Gilbourne.
Just a quick question. No comment about the design, but on the new building with the flat roof, without looking at the detail, is there any restriction on what can be done on the roof in terms of if they ever thought of doing performances or something up there that would use that space creatively? Is there a planning implication if they wanted to?
Which are you referring to, the roof, the plinth or the roof of the production studio itself? There would be PV panels on the roof of the production studio. No. Well, the concept of the production studio is to create that immersive technology within the building itself.
Councillor Peake.
Sorry, I just can't resist saying this. I also wish to be, all of us to promote the use of this area for the filming industry. And what I can't help saying is, my son has just had his first lead role in a film filmed in the Dockside area. And apparently that area to the production team and with those involved in this already has a really, really high reputation. So more that we can extend this asset that we got, all the better. And that was my excuse for showing off about my son, who I'm incredibly proud of. Thank you. Watch out for name Bradley Peakin lights sometime.
Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I think it's a very interesting, exciting proposal. The only area where I think a reason for objection would come from would be on the heritage grounds, but of course Historic England are supporting the application, so that's good. And like others have said, this will enhance that area and boost our creative and media economy, which is only a great thing. Thank you.
Okay. I welcome the application. I think it's an excellent use of an existing building, and the addition will be of a great asset, not only in a design, but actually in how it delivers in a practical sense. And it's, by the way, the design is not isolated. Just to the north of this location, nobody's mentioned it, is the Lloyd's of London buildings. There's two of them, and they are, if I remember correctly, they are a four-dimensional representation of a cube, and they are equally interesting to look at. So it's not a new building on its own. It is something that's actually linked to buildings to the middle, to the north. Having said that, can I move to the Vice Chair to move item 7 to start with, and just to remind Councillor Stamp is the fact that there's a further representations on the supplementary agenda for item 7.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendation for approval for the application subject to A and B and conditions 1 to 23 as laid out in the main papers and the amendments in the supplementary agenda. Thank you. So
the recommendation is for approval. Those in favour of the recommendation? Well, Councillor, who didn't shout? Nick? Jones?
Were you trying to second that?
Yeah, I did second, Chair. Right. I was so overwhelmed by the stories of Hollywood and aspirations for that.
Right. Okay, so those in favour?
That's 15, Chair.
So approval is given for item 7. Move to item 8. And there's one additional, well, it's an amendment to condition 5. And I move to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendation to approve the application subject to conditions 1 to 5 and the amendment of condition 5 in the supplementary agenda. Thank you.
Seconded.
Aha. Okay, so again, that's recommendation is for approval. Those in favour?
That's 15, Chair.
Thank you. So the recommendation of both of them for the former police station, East Road, Historic Dock of Chatham, they've been approved. Okay. Thank you, Councillor Maple, for your contribution. Before we move on to the next item, will be item 5. I'm going to take a break, comfort break, but also the fact that there are some additional papers. We don't normally have additional papers. there was a view taken by the previous committee that all these additional papers should be provided a week, 4 clear working days in advance, e.g. that was last Wednesday noon, but there was a misunderstanding. So we've got some additional paperwork that's been provided by an email Mr Harris today, plus some additional items there. I'm going to take an opportunity for members to have a comfort break, take a read of those additional papers, which were both placed on the table in front of you when you arrived. So have a comfort break, have a drink, and please, can you start, those who haven't had any, there's cake and sweets. Thank you. words, but it's the gist of the additional papers that have been passed around. Is it all right if we restart the meeting? Okay. So we're going to go to item 5. And Mr. Harris will speak to the item.
Chairman, thank you very much. This is the third time that I or one of my members of staff will have presented this application to this committee, but it's actually the fourth time that I've made reference to it at this committee. A little bit of background, which is set out in the reports, is that this is the application site here, and we had an application for up to 9 dwellings on this site. When it originally, it's an outline application with all matters other than means of access reserved for later approval. So members will see layout, scale, appearance and landscaping will all be subject to reserved matters application, which will come in and could come back to this committee, again, should members deem it appropriate. Now, the first time this came to committee, members debated it. You felt that there was a need for some further information before you could make a decision one way or the other on the application, and it was deferred. It then came back to this committee again in September, where members again debated it. They had that further information for consideration, and you resolved to approve the application, subject to, though, it being us first notifying the Health and Safety Executive that you were minded to approve it. And that was because the Health and Safety Executive, because of the power line that, the underground pipeline which goes through the site, said that if you were minded to approve it, they wanted to have notification of that to determine whether to require the application to be called in or not. So we notified the Health and Safety Executive of the decision of this committee to approve, and they contacted me and my case officer and asked for a meeting, which we had, and they explained where their areas of concern were, which was not that they were adverse or against the principle of development on this site. Absolutely not. They recognise that. What they said, though, is that these 4 units in here were within part of the zone for the pipeline, and their practice would be to object to anything more than 2 houses on there. So they would accept and not object to 2 houses. Now, that had not been clear in their original representations to us, which were reported to this committee. And on that, you had a very detailed report from members which set out all the representations that we had received for your consideration. So that gave an options to us and to the applicants. The options were to reduce these units from 4 to 2 and reduce the overall quantum of development from 9 to 7. If the other alternatives were to remain at 9, and in which case there would have been 2 options open to us as local authority. Either to still support the application, despite an objection then from the Health and Safety Executive, and in which case the HSE would take a view as to whether they pushed for a call-in from the Secretary of State, or this committee could have taken an alternative recommendation of a refusal. We put that to the applicant, and I came back to this committee in relation to the minutes and updated you on that conversation with the Health and Safety Executive. We then put that to the applicant, and the applicant has very carefully and properly considered the comments from the Health and Safety Executive, which are now very clear. And they have reduced the number of units in quantum from up to 9 to up to 7 dwellings on this site. And then their illustrative plans reduce the number of units in here from 4 down to 2. That's what it's now showing. Now, I appreciate that this is an outline application, and that layout is a reserved matter. It's not for consideration. But what we needed to be satisfied was that they could satisfactorily achieve 7 dwellings on this site without causing an issue for the Health and Safety Executive. Hence this plan. Hence we've gone back to the Health and Safety Executive to formally say these are the revised plans we've got. And they've come back on the 13th of November to say they no longer object to the application. Those comments are very clearly set out in your report on page 28. Now, it would have been possible for me to have determined this application under delegated powers, because the resolution of this committee was to approve subject to taking the views of the Health and Safety Executive, which is exactly what I've done. However, I felt it appropriate, and I feel it's appropriate in discussion with the chairman to bring this application back to committee so that you can consider those comments from the Health and Safety Executive. So this shows the inner zone in terms of the pipeline. And you can see that it goes along that line there. And what the Health and Safety Executive said is that because these units are outside, in terms of the building and dwellings themselves, are outside that line, they have no objections to those. This shows then only 2 being within that inner zone. They, again, are happy with no more than 2. Reflecting those comments, one of the conditions before you, and this was a point that Councillor Etheridge rightly questioned me on to be satisfied on, was about removal of permitted development rights. And there is a condition, one which limits the number of units to 7, and there's a further condition which removes permitted development rights. Or there will be a condition removing permitted, no, there is. Condition 19 removes permitted development rights, Councillor Etheridge, and you were right to question me and ask me that question. That's an indicative street scene, and these are some views that members of you've previously seen in resolving to approve the application. But I think that's the appropriate plan for you to consider. So you have previously resolved to approve it, subject to referral to the Health and Safety Executive. We've had a conversation with them. We've got the applicants to amend the scheme. It's down to 7 units now. Health and Safety Executive have no objection. Recommendation is for approval, subject to the conditions that you see laid out. Thank you, Chairman.
And just to pick up on the comments by Mr. Harris, he could determine this under his delegated powers, subject to conversations with his spokes. He spoke of me, and I said, no, it should come back to committee. It's the right thing to do. But of course, this is an outline application, and the whole thing will come back when a full reserved matters application is considered. So, is it agreed that Councillor Spalding speaks as a ward member? Councillor Spalding, I'm just setting up my my timer. You have 5 minutes, and after 4, I'll let you know it's 1 minute to go.
I'm obliged. Members, this matter came to committee twice before. It now comes back again because of HSE concerns. On both previous occasions, the committee was told, and I quote, "The layout has been mindful of the high-pressure gas main which runs to the north of proposed site. All development, including garden areas, are set out outside the required buffer zone." This was taken from the applicant's supporting statement, page 18, paragraph 6.8. We now know from this latest involvement with the HSE, this was perhaps erroneous. On both previous occasions, the planning officer's presentation told the committee, quote, "Concern has been expressed by the HSE, Southern Gas Networks and Network Gas Transmission regarding the proximity of their pipeline and assets to the application site and development. The applicants are content that their scheme has been designed to be away from such sensitive pipelines and to adhere to any separation distances." Again, I suggest we now know that was erroneous. What the planning officer did not tell you on both occasions, and I've gone through both recordings of these several times, was that the HSE Southern Gas Networks and National Gas Transmission were all objecting and advising against the application. HSE advised against. Southern Gas Networks formally object to the planning application. National Gas Transmission, bold letters, you must not proceed. That's not concern about being expressed, that is being told you must not do this. And I take issue with Mr. Harris's suggestion that at the last committee meeting, we were told, oh, we'll go to the HSE because we're minded to approve it. No, that's not, in my view, what happened, having reviewed the videos. What actually happened was the HSE wrote to the council to say, if you're minded to grant planning permission, the authority must give HSE advance notice. It's section 9, paragraph 72, Planning Practice Guide, Hazardous Substances. Advance notice if minded, not grant permission, which is what actually happened. There was no mention about minded to, and then we'll go to the HSE. There's a referral to. Not grant permission and send the head of planning to try and get retrospective approval, in my opinion. Now, I've written to the HSE seeking clarification on a couple of matters. They responded very late today. So when they met our planners, their understanding was that the council had not yet granted planning permission. Fact, the minutes say permission was granted. It makes you wonder what else the HSE didn't know. And you'll note their latest letter, 13th of November, indicates contentment because of paragraph 4, they say there's nothing to cause people to congregate. Example, children's play area. If you recall, and I checked this, at the last council committee meeting, we got told about a play area. And if you look at the applicant's own supporting statement, they refer to this extra amenity space. People will congregate. Therefore, that immediately throws the HSE out the game. Similarly, it seems the HSE were not told about the flooding. But let's ignore them for a moment, because I can't see it anywhere, but it seems the Southern Gas Network objection still stands. The gas transmission objection still stands. You must not proceed. Which brings me on to the flooding. On both occasions, the planning officer's verbal presentation referred to the flooding in Middle Stoke. On both occasions, the committee was told the lead local flood authority was undertaking works to improve it. I say not true. In an email to myself dated 25th of September, the planning officer herself admitted, and I quote, the LLFA haven't instructed any works. At the September meeting, committee is told the applicant had provided supplementary advice. We're told it had been checked by the local lead flood authority. The flood authority is us. It's Medway Council.
1 minute.
It's our own Gabrielle Bussey with whom I've been speaking. Now, I say there was no supplementary advice or sorted. The committee approved the application for 9 dwellings when it shouldn't have done, in my opinion. It did so because apparent misrepresentation outside the buffer zone. I say you are now being asked to approve 7 instead of 9 on the basis you already approved this. Would you have approved it if you'd known those correct facts? Committee erred through no fault of its own. Don't make the same mistake. You can see how devastating the flooding is from the photographs. Southern Gas Networks still object. Gas transmission, you must not proceed. HSE seem to consent if you don't congregate. Hold on, play area. Do not be put off refusing this application by the cabalistic phrase, it's only an outline application. Mr. Chairman, inside 5 minutes, and I'm obliged.
Thank you. Any member? Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Chairman. I would like clarification, which I think is a reasonable question, on the current status of the Southern Gas Networks and National Gas Transmission objections. What's the current status of them? Thank you.
Mr. Harris.
Chairman, it remains exactly as it was at the time we presented the report in September. In September, we advised members that Southern Gas Networks formally object to this planning application until such time as a detailed consultation has taken place with them. We advised then a copy of this letter has been provided to the applicants. In relation to National Gas Transmission, again, the report says, have written that the site location is in close proximity to National Gas Transmission PLC's apparatus and development should not proceed without further assessment from asset protection. Again, the applicants were sent a copy of that letter. Now, On both of those, we are guided by the Health and Safety Executive, who require that before a decision is issued, that we notify them and give them an opportunity to call the application in, which is exactly what we did. And then we had a really, really helpful conversation with them, and we've now got these amended plans. In relation to those comments, the buffer zone in terms of the pipeline comes to that point just there. But then there is this inner zone on the red hash, which is what the Health and Safety Executive have referred to. In relation to your question, Councillor Pearce, the two pipelines, they do maintain their objections because they still want to have clarity over exactly where the buildings are going to go. I can't give them that clarity because this is an outline application. When the reserve matters comes in, we will consult with them all again, but in the meantime, we have notified or put a notice the applicants for them to contact directly both those groups or those companies so they can have further discussion on the exact location of the pipeline and what that means in terms of where the buildings could or should go in relation to this site. As I said, we have had clarity from the Health and Safety Executive. That was exactly the position back in September. With the exception of the Health and Safety Executive, we've now clarified that. Hopefully that's helpful, Councillor Pearce.
Any other member? Councillor Turpin.
Thank you, Chair. So my understanding from that, Mr. Harris, is that it's more the design going forward that's going to be the issue. And does that mean that when we've got the detailed application, is there any way of sort of insisting that that comes in front of the committee as well? Yeah. Is that a condition, or I don't know how you would do that, because that seems to be sort of the issue here.
That seems really sensible, Councillor Turpin, and this committee, I mean, the chairman has already made it clear to me that he would wish any reserve matters application to come back to committee. But the normal practice is if members in considering outline want to see the details at committee, they instruct me and we make sure that happens.
Just reconfirm that it's myself and Mr. Harris who just wanted this to come to this committee, and we want it to come back, the reserve matters, to this committee for decision.
Because it could have been done, I mean, the next application could be done under your delegated powers, I'm assuming, but we're sort of agreeing here that it will definitely come back. Yeah, thank you.
Oh, any other member? Councillor Peake.
Well, there seems to be an inference this evening that if you approve an outline planning decision, that it's done and dusted. So I'm glad that Councillor Turpin asked the question. He was too quick for me. I was thinking about asking the same question, and I would like to say to the committee, I feel reassured that if we see the detail, the process has gone through, that we collectively will say no. Now we have the right, and we will make up our mind then at that point. And surely that's all part and parcel of doing this properly. Thank you.
That is the normal practice. Any other member? Oh, Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Chairman. Reference has also been made to the flooding in the area. Can we confirm this will also go before the local drainage board for it to be reviewed? Thank you.
Should point out that obviously SUDS was discussed at the last application as well as the flooding. So that these units are subject to a SUD, and so is actually the two cottages adjacent will fit into the same scheme. As you can see, there's that what looks like a pond is the SUD scheme. Mr.
No, Chairman, I just would agree with Councillor Etheridge's request, absolutely.
Any other member? If not, I move to the Vice Chair for the recommendation.
Thank you, Chair. I move the recommendation to approve the application subject to conditions 1 to 24 as laid out in the main papers. Thank you.
Seconded.
So the recommendation is for approval. Those in favour?
That's 14, Chairman.
Those against? So the planning application for the outline planning application for land at Middlestoke, adjacent to 1 and 2 Jubilee Gardens, Green Road, Middlestoke, has been approved. So move on to item 13. Mr. Harris, you're going to speak to the Section 106 agreements.
Chairman, thank you very much. Members, quarterly I bring this report to you, which is on Section 106 agreements for the period July to September 2023. This is really important that members see this. It's very important that we are transparent in relation to Section 106s, and that is why I agree with the need for an infrastructure funding statement, which went to Cabinet yesterday, and that's an annual thing that we do. In addition to that, we have these quarterly reports to this committee, which shows the funding received within the quarter, and also the Section 106 is signed in that period as well, and where the expenditure has been made. In addition to that, members, these reports, along with the infrastructure funding statement, will go to the Overview and Scrutiny Committee as well. Now, I'm happy to take any questions and put them to my Section 106 officer. We'll be very happy to come back in writing to any member. Thank you.
Councillor Etheridge.
Thank you, Chairman. The very first one on the list, 182961, the travel bus contribution, third instalment. Now, I'm aware that the initial timetable has been changed at least twice, simply because it wasn't being used. I'd like some information, possibly from Arriva or from yourself, Dave, just how many people actually use this bus service, and is it actually providing value for money? Because if it's not, I'm sure that we can use that 106 money elsewhere within Cliffwoods.
Mr. Harris?
Chairman, I'll come back to Councillor Etheridge on that.
Any other member on this? If not, I will go to the Vice Chair.
Thank you, Chair. I move agenda item number 13 for approval.
Seconded.
Those in favour?
That's 15, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. Vice Chair, can we move to item 14, exclusion of press and public?
Thank you, Chair. I move agenda 14 on the papers.
Seconded.
Is that agreed? Okay. So, item 15.